Today is Thursday, January 20th, and it's time for the Chair's Daily Life. Happy Thursday. So in keeping with the discussion that I've been having, today is the 20th. You have 4 days. You have 4 days to request your absentee ballot if you intend to vote absentee, vote from home in the election on February 8th. And if this is the first time you're hearing that there's an election on February 8th, I'm glad you're here. There is an election, mostly school board and a lot of municipal all over the state on February 8th. I'm encouraging, particularly with the Omicron spread, I'm encouraging as many people as possible to request their absentee ballot and vote from home. But while you're out there registering on the state election board, while you're out there registering and requesting your absentee ballot, go ahead and request them for the rest of the year, because we have the February election, and then we have one in June, one in August, and one in November. And so it'll be great if they can all come to your house. You can study them at your leisure and get those turned in. Today, I thought I'd do something different. It's been a while since I've done this, but with all the stuff that's going on, we're not even in legislative session, but there's a lot of stuff going on in our state legally, and particularly with regards to education. I don't have children, nor am I a teacher. So what I thought I would do is I would bring on some experts to talk about some of the topics related to education in Oklahoma. So join me in welcoming Senator Mary Boren from Norman and Representative Jacob Rosecrans from Norman as well. They are both former classroom teachers. They are both in the legislature. And they're both kind of vocal with what they think about what's going on in education in our state. So I thought I would have them join. How are you guys?
Hanging in there.
Busy.
So let's just start right out the gate. What do you guys think about state employees substituting in the classroom? Go ahead, Jacob.
Well, as I tried to communicate to folks, so there's so many problems with this. Number one, the governor has proven over and over again that he's going to do some big flashy thing with a bunch of media there, and it's not going to have a whole lot of substance. That's exactly what this was. Plus, it looks to me almost like he got together with his buddies and had like a sleepover, and they were like, oh, let's go ahead and do this. This will be a great idea. Because as we kind of found out and looked around and kind of dug into this, first of all, a lot of districts have their own ways of doing this. Like Norman Public Schools, my district, you have to sign a volunteer form. You can do all this already. Parents, anybody, it doesn't matter if you're a teacher or whatever else, and they have their own way of doing it. They didn't really take a look at that. And also, it looks to me like there might be some language issues too, because they're using the word subs. Down here in Norman, the subs go through Kelly, Kelly Business. I can't remember what it is. It's outsourced. So that presents a problem too. So this wasn't very well thought out, which really doesn't come as any surprise to me.
So that's what I thought. I've been calling it a non-plan.
Yeah.
There was no deep research. It doesn't feel to me like there was a plan. Senator Boren?
Well, one thing that I have noticed what's common among people who try to use business strategies in government is usually when there's a problem, they start with a rebrand, and they get, new colors, new t-shirts, new logo, and there's that practice of trying to resolve policy issues with a PR strategy. And I think the underlying problem is that we have a lot of teachers sick. And then the question is how do we know that these subs are not going to get sick? And I guess they just think that we just have an endless bench of human capital in Oklahoma, that we can just keep throwing more bodies in there to get sick, and hopefully we'll outlast the Omicron or whatever virus that's out there. And hopefully we'll have enough bodies that we can put in front of Omicron and keep classes open without any protective measures being taken. So that's what concerns me the most, is they just think it's just We just need warm bodies to put in there without any remediation regarding the keeping our whatever person's in there needs to be safe from Omicron, and that's what they don't want to deal with. So that's what I saw it as. I do think it would have been nice 3 years ago when we were at the walkout. They said we need more subs so that teachers don't have to cover other classes, and it would have been nice. It's fine for businesses to go through the steps of doing those partnerships, that they cover the cost of substitute teachers so that they get their regular pay. That's what the one bank did, and I think that's what triggered the governor and his advisory group to decide that they wanted to do the same thing. And all of this could have been done 3 years ago. So there's nothing wrong with businesses or state government having a strategic plan to say, hey, we want you to have experience of what our public schools do. But to say that this is going to battle a pandemic when those same people could just get just as sick and be out of commission like our original teachers, then it seems a little bit short-sighted.
I think it's funny that they're assuming that state employees somehow have a better immune system or somehow are going to outlast. I'm not real sure what the thinking was in it, but I like what you said about when there was an opportunity to prepare for this, because I mean, we have a great teacher exodus is what I think, aside from COVID, like teachers are leaving the profession. And so when there was a chance to plan for it, he didn't. And then he just kind of rolled this out, like you said, a new t-shirt. I think it's interesting. And speaking of the great teacher exodus, what are we going to do, guys?
Well, off the top, okay, so we've all had, there was the teacher walkout back in 2018. There's a fundamental misunderstanding with many people, kind of the leaders, the elected leaders in Oklahoma, and what teachers do or what they care about. It's because they're not listening to the teachers. They're not going out there and being like, what could we do to keep you in the classroom? Yes, pay is part of it, but talk to them. They're going to tell you straight up, it's respect. It's being listened to. It's autonomy. Those types of things that are being stripped away from our teachers are why teachers are just like, I'm not going to put up with this. Or, maybe I can go to a different state, put up with this and get more money. Because honestly, public education system isn't great anywhere in the United States right now. It's why I've been trying to tell folks that it's the system that's the issue. Don't hate on the public schools. Hate on the over reliance on tests. Hate on the I guess like you could call it corporate reform, the push for privatization. Hate on all that, and then realize that our teachers need as much support as they can possibly get. Yeah, that comes down to funding too. One of my big things is I'm just like, why don't we just fund them and get out of their way? They're the experts, and just go on with that. But we have a lot of people now. It's worse than ever. It's absolutely worse than ever of these elected leaders going in there and messing with things or creating laws that never needed to be created. HB 1775 and all of those types of things. You do that, and after a while, your professional educators are just going to get out.
You bring up laws that should never have been created. I'm an optimist at heart, right? That's really the only way I can still be a Democrat in Oklahoma is I believe in hope. So I want to take a pause and talk about something positive like Play to Learn. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. The Play to Learn Act was, first of all, I didn't write it. Educators wrote it. I put together a work group who it's actually not just educators. It's higher education professors from early childhood education as well from around the state. Some parents and medical professionals got together and created this bill that was needed because a lot of the prospective early childhood educators and ones who are already teaching said they just simply cannot teach the way that they were taught to teach children and the way they know that children learn best, which is through hands-on play-based learning. So through this process, which was 2019 when it began, I never really thought it was going to be a bill because I honestly never thought it would have the teeth to be a bill. But as the process went on and as I kind of bulldogged it, because when I get on something, I dig into it with that. And that's exactly what I did. After a while, it caught on the other side of the aisle, and they started talking to their early childhood educators out in their districts, and it became a very positive thing, and it passed. So now, pre-K through third grade teachers are empowered to use play and play-based, techniques in their classrooms. Sad I had to write a bill to even do that, to protect that. But that goes to show you exactly the issues that we're having here. We've gone in with this corporate reform, this business mindset almost, which, hey, listen, business is business. I understand, but schools don't exactly work as businesses. And that's kind of where the disconnect comes from too. It's not all about outcomes all the time. It's about, sure, that's important, but you have to make sure that you realize these kids are not just widgets to be able to be moved around. So that is a positive, and it led to another bill this year I'm running, which is House Bill 3047. I just filed it, and it actually is going to protect recess in our schools, which, again, what am I doing? Why do I have to write these bills? That's because, again, the system itself, the sit down and really figured out that's the academic. They think that's the way kids learn. That isn't it. That you have to let kids get out, discover, and do these amazing things. Whenever they're moving around, you'll see true learning. So again, positive, yes. And that bill I'm running, I think, has some support as well. But amazing, I have to even do this. I feel the need to do it.
Well, my favorite part of what you all of that you said is that it was written by educators, which gets me back to kind of why I wanted you guys to be here, is that we should consult the subject matter experts.
Yes.
It
seems so simple, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. The folks over here in politics and all that kind of stuff, we think a certain way, but in certain topics, healthcare, education, we should consult the subject matter experts, which is why I wanted to highlight that bill, because no offense, but I didn't think that you created that whole cloth. I thought that there was input from educators.
Absolutely, 100%. And, I changed it. We messed around with it during the committee process. We made it stronger, but the original language is basically still in there. And so let's talk about that real quick. Some of the words are going to get stripped out should a new bill that just got introduced pass from a certain senator, which you may talk about that. I don't know if you want to lead into it yet, but go ahead. Yeah, so Senate Bill 1442, it came to my attention last night. I was sitting there just chilling, answering some emails, and all of a sudden my email box and everything else just fills up, because apparently this dude decides to outlaw social emotional learning in his bill. Now that thing, listen, I'm going to work very hard to make sure it never sees the light of day. I have made very good relationships across the aisle. I know there are common sense folks that helped pass the Play to Learn Act that understand that social emotional learning is not indoctrination. It's not CRT or whatever else somebody wants to call it, because trust me, when I was trying to pass my bill, that did come up. It almost died because of the words social and emotional in the bill. Not even a mandate to do it. It just mentioned it. So what this bill would do, it would basically outlaw social emotional learning in our schools. It's insidious. That doesn't make any sense at all. It's a slap in the face to every single teacher and early childhood educator that ever has lived. And also, I will say that it takes the word social and emotional out of our bill. That's all it does. It doesn't change the gist or the strength of our bill. So a lot of people, after I told them that, they were like, oh, okay, cool. So our bill's still good. Yes, it still protects and empowers play in our classrooms. But what in the holy world is that bill even about? Like, just come on, man. I talked to this guy. He's not dumb. It's just, what is that bill? I mean, I talked to him when I was trying to pass the Play to Learn Act over there, and he is literally afraid of social emotional learning. And so I almost felt like giving him a hug or something, right? But this is just beyond the pale, absolutely beyond the pale.
I didn't fully understand what that bill was trying to do, but my question was the talking out of both sides of their neck, right? Mm-hmm. They say that they're afraid of CRT, which isn't a thing in K through 12, but they say that they're afraid of CRT because it might make some children feel bad. But then we have this conflicting bill that says, hey, we don't want to talk about feelings and we don't want to get into any of that. I don't understand. It doesn't match.
It really doesn't. And also, too, I mean, you need to know what a lot of people don't know what it is. Okay. Even with social emotional, they hear, if you can put it into 3 little letters, then you can then say it's something that it's not, and you can scare the living bejesus out of it, which honestly the GOP loves to do with their base. So, and I'm not, that's no news to anybody, but yeah, it's like self-management. It's self-awareness. Think about manners almost. You know what I mean? These types of things you're talking about. You're talking about outlawing that in our schools. Well, then you just outlawed elementary, and really you outlawed any kind of early childhood education center. You outlawed them all. It's absolutely the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. I'm almost wondering, do some of these guys, author these bills just to try to get other bills passed because we're so focused on this? I'm wary enough to understand that and try to look, and I'm sure Senator Bourne is as well.
And so, Senator Bourne, I'd like you to weigh in on social emotional learning, because I think
I was a school counselor, and Norman Public Schools has one of the best social emotional learning curriculums in the nation. They looked at all the programs several years ago, and they selected the Second Step curriculum, which teaches learning skills and applies the skills of emotional intelligence and getting along with others in a school setting with the academic skill that you need to be able to be successful. So, for example, like one of the lessons that I taught was teaching kids how to be assertive and not be aggressive and not be passive. And one of the videos was a little kid waiting in line to play on the playground, Jacob, and he was in middle school, and he was kind of had his head down and his shoulders were hunched over, and people kept cutting in front of him, and he was starting to feel really intimidated by people just being very disrespectful of him needing a turn. And so we use that as an example of what passive looks like. And then I taught the kids from pre-K through 5th grade how to be assertive, as opposed to passive, where you let everybody run all over you, or aggressive, where you are just really hurtful to other people. So what we had to do is teach kids how to use their tone of voice, to use a calm, strong, confident voice, to put your shoulders back, to keep your chin up, to look people in the eye and tell them what you needed. And so we practiced, how would you tell a friend that you don't want them cutting without getting in trouble and getting suspended or getting expelled because you're too aggressive with somebody. And I taught that same skill set all the way from, and they had music videos and music songs to teach them. I taught that from pre-K through 5th grade. So can you think of how helpful it would be in a group setting, working on a poster or doing any collaborative work or at school, where being able to be assertive and not passive and not aggressive would be a helpful skill set? I mean, that's something that grown-ups have to do every day, is to
maybe
learn
in the legislature, if maybe they figured out how to do it without bullying, we could get other bills heard.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's one. So this attack on social emotional learning goes all the way back in the 90s, and it wraps around with very religiously right people, and they had this they're very afraid of humanism, and they're afraid of any teaching that teaches that people can learn to be moral people without a strict tenet of their religious following. So also what we see is they want people to be, we've talked about teachers aren't babysitters. Well, teachers aren't bots either. They're not to be scripted. And, the thing is that very wealthy schools, teachers are not scripted. Private schools are rarely where you have scripted teachers. I've seen some private religious schools that are very scripted, but your academies and your places that are college prep schools, the kids are able to interact in a lot of much more free ways. But within an authoritarian worldview, you're going to want people to stay on script. You don't want them to deviate off of the script. And I think that that's part of the reason why they're very concerned about social emotional learning, is because it implies that everybody has something to offer, that there's inherent human dignity and worth in every person, regardless of your tradition or background. And that just is too much for them to not be able to control. And so then that's why there's been this long battle against a social emotional learning. And I think, though, that there is concern. They take one concern and then they throw the baby out with the bathwater. Their concern is that, schools as authoritarian government groups are going to come in and, impose a humanistic worldview onto little kids, as opposed to being able to just have the skill set learned. And what we can do better is to say, no, every parent from every background, and Norman has, we have Muslim students, we have Jewish students, we have every kind of Christian students, we have agnostic students, we have atheist students, we have everybody, we have every world religion is within Norman Public Schools. And so what would be more helpful for families to be able to keep the authentic background that they care about is to actually teach skills like assertive and knowing how to say, this is what my value system is, and this is what my family believes, and still be able to do a poster with somebody that believes something completely different, and to learn from each other. And we can't do that kind of hard collaborative work without those skill sets.
Well, that's I've learned something today I didn't expect to learn. I just expected to hear the greatness. Is there any other topic that you want us to talk about just a little bit? Because these were the topics that were heavy on my mind, but I'm not in the legislature, and nor was I a teacher. Any other topic you want folks to know is happening right now in education?
Well, I think that we're just going to see a lot of exodus in May. And I do think that there is a lot of teachers that are interested in helping make sure people get registered to vote. We still have a big need for teachers that will help. The Institute for Child Advocacy has a program called Chalk the Vote. So if there's any of the listeners that show up on this that want to help out with this a nonpartisan effort to interact with public school supporters to make sure that everybody's registered to vote and knows when to vote, then Chalk the Vote is in needing more support. But I just think we've just got to be vigilant about finding our friends and our neighbors and our coworkers that are not registered to vote. We also have to need to make sure that you haven't been purged. Jacob, have you been purged? Doesn't that sound awful?
Have you checked?
Yeah, that's my big thing is, have you been purged?
No.
Everybody needs to check and make sure. That should be something in Oklahoma that people do every January. Make sure you haven't been purged. It's like your annual checkup. Make sure you
I have heard
purged.
some stories of people that were, which now I know a little bit more about this.
Yeah,
I'll
I found out about
mine
some too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every odd year, the state of Oklahoma purges voters for a lot of reasons. They say that we do it for the folks who haven't participated, and that is the number one reason. But also, they send out postcards to verify that you're still at the address that you say that you are. And they do these things in an attempt to keep our voters' rolls clean. And some folks find out they're purged when they show up to vote. And so, I am forever telling people, verify. Don't just assume, because once upon a time you registered to vote, that your registration is up to date. Go out to the Oklahoma State Election Board, click on voter portal, and make sure that you still pull up as an active registered voter. Because I do know, and this happened to a legislator this year, I do know that if you registered a while ago, there are pieces of your registration that may or may not be up to date. And it keeps you from doing a lot of the things that you need to do online, like requesting your absentee ballot and things such as that. So thank you for bringing that up. I want to remind everybody, because I didn't get a chance to say it today. I forgot because I was so excited to get to these two. Go out to the Oklahoma State Election Board, go to voter portal, put in your name, your birthday, make sure your voter's registration is up to date. And while you're out there, request your absentee ballot. Thank you, Senator Boren. Thank you, Representative Rosecrans. I really appreciate you joining me and making my life more informed and more intelligent today than always. You guys have a great evening. And for the rest of you, we'll be back here tomorrow at 4:15. Thanks for joining.